In the USA, there are laws that have been around longer than cars themselves. From not being able to eat ice cream on Sundays to keeping potatoes in your front yard, these laws might sound made up, but they're completely real. Let's explore some weird ones. 1. Animal and wildlife laws. Let's dive into some of the strangest animal-related laws still active in US states. While some of these might sound made up, they're actually real regulations that stem from specific historical events or local concerns. In Alaska, pushing a moose from an airplane isn't just a bad idea, it's illegal. This law came about during the early days of bush pilots and hunting regulations. While it might seem obvious now, apparently someone needed to be told not to do this. The law specifically addresses concerns about wildlife harassment and hunter ethics. Today, it's part of Alaska's broader wildlife protection statutes. Arizona has two particularly interesting laws. First, the donkey bathtub rule dates back to the 1920s. A local donkey fell asleep in a bathtub, and when a flood hit, the bathtub floated away with the donkey still in it. The town spent significant resources rescuing the animal, leading to this preventative law. The second law protects saguaro cacti, making it a criminal offense to cut them down. Violators can face hefty fines and even jail time, as these cacti can take up to 100 years to grow and are crucial to the desert ecosystem. Kentucky's blue duckling law might seem random, but it addresses real animal welfare concerns. The practice of dyeing baby animals for Easter became popular in the mid-20th century, leading to health issues for the animals and impulse purchases that often resulted in abandonment. The law protects young animals from harmful dyes and discourages treating them as novelty items. Montana's sheep chaperone law reflects the state's agricultural heritage. The requirement for a chaperone when transporting sheep in truck cabs came from practical concerns about livestock safety and driver distraction. It's still enforced today, particularly during sheep transport season. Louisiana's snake ban at Mardi Gras might sound like a party pooper law, but it serves a serious purpose. The crowded nature of Mardi Gras celebrations makes snake handling particularly dangerous. After several incidents involving both real and fake snakes causing panic in parade crowds, this law was enacted to maintain public safety during celebrations. Idaho's camel fishing prohibition seems oddly specific, but it's part of broader regulations about fishing methods and safety. The law actually falls under general statutes about unconventional fishing practices and using animals while fishing, though the camel specification adds a unique twist. Wyoming's rabbit photography law is tied to wildlife conservation efforts. The restriction during certain months coincides with breeding seasons, and the permit requirement helps track wildlife documentation activities. This law is part of broader wildlife photography regulations that aim to protect animals during vulnerable periods. If these animal laws have caught your attention, hit that like button and subscribe, because we've got even more fascinating laws coming up. 2. Food and beverage laws. Connecticut's bouncing pickle law stands as one of the most curious food regulations in America. Back in the 1800s, fraudulent pickle makers would sell cucumbers that weren't properly fermented. These pickles could be dangerous to eat, but properly fermented ones would bounce when dropped. Food inspectors developed this simple test to protect consumers. Today, while the law remains, modern food safety regulations have largely superseded this bouncing test. Nebraska's soup requirement for bars stems from an era when lawmakers worried about people drinking on empty stomachs. The law mandates that bars must have soup brewing while serving beer. This regulation ties into broader historical attempts to regulate alcohol consumption through food service requirements. Many establishments today comply by keeping soup warmers running, even if customers rarely order soup. Georgia's ice cream cone law might seem silly, but it addressed a real problem of horse theft. Thieves would put ice cream cones in their back pockets to lure horses away, without technically stealing them. The horses would follow the sweet treat, allowing thieves to claim they weren't stealing. The horse was following them voluntarily. While no longer actively enforced, this law reflects historical livestock protection measures. Illinois' fire-eating prohibition protects both customers and first responders. The law clearly states that consuming food in an actively burning building is illegal. This regulation helps emergency services do their job without worrying about people trying to finish their meals during evacuations. Maryland's ocean eating ban focuses on public safety. Swimming while eating poses obvious choking hazards, and dropping food in the ocean can attract unwanted marine life to swimming areas. The law remains actively enforced at many beaches, particularly during peak tourist seasons. Wisconsin's apple pie and cheese connection showcases how local food culture can influence law. While not strictly enforced, this regulation reflects the state's dairy heritage and has become more of a cultural touchstone than a legal requirement. Many restaurants voluntarily follow this tradition. Vermont's ice cream and religious belief law might seem to mix church and state, but it actually stems from truth in advertising regulations. The law was meant to prevent false claims about divine or miraculous properties in food products, something that was common in early food advertising. These food laws might seem strange, but wait until you hear what's next. Hit that like button and subscribe to learn more fascinating facts about American laws. 3. Public behavior laws. Public behavior laws often reveal interesting aspects of social history. Alabama's fake mustache regulation specifically targets disruptive behavior in churches. This law belongs to a broader category of regulations aimed at maintaining reverence in religious spaces. While rarely enforced today, it remains technically active. Delaware's church whispering ban and dress code. Regulations both stem from attempts to maintain public order. The whispering law aims to prevent disruption during services, while the sagging pants regulation reflects more recent attempts to regulate public appearance. These laws often generate debate about personal freedom versus community standards. Arkansas's state name pronunciation law protects cultural heritage. The correct pronunciation, Arkansas, not Arkansas, was officially codified to settle a long-standing dispute. State legislators felt strongly enough about this issue to make it law, and it remains enforced in official contexts. The cheese factory napping prohibition in Illinois addresses workplace safety concerns. Factory environments require constant alertness, and sleeping workers could endanger themselves or compromise food safety. This regulation falls under broader industrial safety guidelines. Mississippi's church disruption law aligns with constitutional protections for religious practice. Unlike some other religious-based regulations, this one focuses specifically on intentional disruption rather than accidental disturbances. Courts have generally upheld such laws as reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Missouri's historical bachelor tax, while no longer active, reveals interesting social engineering attempts through taxation. Similar laws existed in many places, aiming to encourage marriage and population growth. Understanding these historical regulations helps us appreciate how social attitudes have evolved. Nevada's sidewalk sleeping ban in Reno addresses urban management challenges. While controversial, especially regarding homeless populations, the law aims to maintain public space accessibility. This regulation continues to spark debates about compassion versus public order. 4. Vehicle and transportation laws. Transportation regulations often reflect both safety concerns and social attitudes of their times. California's housecoat driving restriction for women emerged during an era of gender-specific legislation. While outdated and likely unenforceable today, it remains technically on the books. Florida's Sunday parachuting restriction for unmarried women combines social conventions with safety regulations. Like many blue laws governing Sunday activities, this one targeted specific groups while masquerading as a safety measure. Modern skydiving regulations have largely superseded such gender-specific restrictions. Maine's Dunkin' Donuts parking law addresses specific traffic flow issues near popular businesses. While seemingly narrow in focus, it represents broader attempts to manage congestion in commercial areas. Similar regulations exist for other popular chains in different states. Michigan's alligator and fire hydrant law might sound absurd, but it falls under broader exotic pet regulations. The specific mention of fire hydrants ensures emergency service access remains unobstructed, regardless of what's being chained there. New Hampshire's nighttime seaweed collection ban protects both environmental and private property interests. Seaweed harvesting can impact coastal ecosystems, and darkness made it difficult to distinguish between public and private beaches. The regulation remains relevant for modern conservation efforts. Oklahoma's comic book driving ban targets distracted driving before cell phones became a concern. This law demonstrates how distracted driving regulations evolved over time, though modern laws focus more on electronic devices. Oregon's newspaper reading pedestrian law places unusual obligations on drivers. While it might seem to encourage dangerous pedestrian behavior, it actually emphasizes drivers' responsibility to remain vigilant. The law reflects broader principles about sharing public roads safely. And there you have it. 30 bizarre laws that are still on the books in the US today. If you found this video interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating content.